Hello, and welcome back to Daily Story, your home for thrilling audio adventures. This is Magic Surprise F, and we are so grateful to have you with us. If you enjoy our tales, please consider hitting that like button, sharing this episode with a friend, and subscribing to the channel so you never miss a story. Now get comfortable, and let's begin today's audiobook. Tonight's tale is one we promised, a story about a home that holds on to its past in the most terrifying way. This is The Reflected Room. My name is Liam. Chloe and I found the mirror at an estate sale, an ornate beast of silver and beveled glass. We hung it in our new living room. It looked perfect. But when I glanced at it that first night, it wasn't reflecting our empty room. It was reflecting a 1950s parlor, complete with a man standing over a woman's body. I blinked, and the horrific image was gone. Our living room, with its half-unpacked boxes and bare walls, stared back at me. I shook my head, blaming exhaustion. We'd just bought our first house, an old Victorian fixer-upper, and had spent the last 48 hours moving. My mind was playing tricks on me. "What's wrong?" Chloe asked. Coming up behind me and wrapping her arms around my waist, I forced a laugh. "Just tired." I didn't want to spoil our first night in our new home with a story about a hallucination. The mirror was our first real treasure for the house. It was massive, nearly floor to ceiling, with a heavy, intricately carved silver frame depicting interwoven vines and strange, sorrowful faces. It was beautiful, but it commanded the room, its dark glass seeming to absorb more light than it reflected. For the next few days, life was normal. We unpacked, we painted, we started to make the house our own. I almost forgot about what I had seen. Then, one afternoon, Chloe called me into the living room, her voice tight with confusion. "Liam, look," she whispered and pointed at the mirror. I looked. It wasn't reflecting us. We saw our living room, but the furniture was different. A floral print sofa, a heavy mahogany coffee table, and lace doilies on the mantelpiece. Sitting on the sofa was a woman in a prim 1950s house dress, calmly knitting. The scene was silent, serene, and utterly impossible. We stood there for a full minute, watching her, until the image flickered like a dying ember and vanished, replaced by our own stunned faces. "Okay," I said, my heart pounding. "You saw that too, right?" Chloe nodded, her eyes wide. "What is happening?" We couldn't explain it, but instead of being terrified, we were fascinated. It was our own private mystery. The mirror began to show us more glimpses of the past. We learned the couple's names were Arthur and Eleanor, gleaned from a newspaper one of them was reading in the reflection. We saw them hosting a dinner party, laughing with friends. We saw them decorating a Christmas tree. They were snapshots of a forgotten life, playing out silently in the glass. But the tone began to change. The idyllic scenes gave way to quiet tension. We'd see Eleanor sitting alone, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. We'd see Arthur pacing the room, his fists clenched, his face a thundercloud. We couldn't hear their arguments, but we could see them. The silent fury in his posture, the terror in her eyes. It was like watching the tragedy unfold through soundproofed glass. The mirror was no longer a curiosity, it was becoming a source of dread. A cold spot developed in front of it, and sometimes late at night we'd hear faint sounds drifting from it, the ghost of a sob, a muffled angry shout. "We have to get rid of it," Chloe said one night, pulling me away from the mirror, where I had been standing transfixed by a reflection of Arthur drinking alone, staring hatefully at an empty chair. "No, not yet," I argued, my voice hollow. "I feel like we have to see how it ends. We have to be witnesses." "Witnesses to what, Liam? A ghost story?" This thing is poisoning our home." She was right. The mirror's oppressive sadness was seeping into our lives, causing us to bicker and grow distant. But I couldn't pull myself away. The mirror demanded an audience. The final night came without warning. We were drawn to the living room by a sudden, intense drop in temperature. The air was ice cold. We looked at the mirror, and the scene was already in motion. It was the most vivid it had ever been. Arthur and Eleanor were in the middle of a terrible final confrontation. His face was purple with rage. Her face was a mask of sheer terror. He was backing her into a corner. We saw her mouth form the word "No." He struck her, a single brutal blow. She collapsed, falling just out of the mirror's frame. We saw her hand reach up, as if pleading. Before it fell limp, Chloe screamed, a real piercing sound in our quiet living room. In the mirror, the reflection of Arthur stood panting, his chest heaving. He stared down at the spot where his wife lay. Then slowly, horribly, he lifted his head. His eyes, full of a chilling, empty malice, moved across his 1950s parlor until they found us. He looked directly at me and Chloe. He saw us. A slow, terrible smile spread across his face. He raised his hand and pressed it against his side of the mirror. On our side, the silvered glass bulged outward, the surface rippling like water. An unholy cold washed over us, stealing our breath. The barrier was breaking. "He's coming through!" Chloe shrieked. I was paralyzed for a second, locked by his hateful gaze. Then adrenaline surged through me. I lunged at the fireplace, grabbing the heavy iron poker. "Liam, no!" I didn't listen. I ran at the mirror screaming with a mix of terror and rage and swung the poker with all my might. The impact was deafening. The mirror didn't just shatter, it exploded. A tidal wave of frigid air and the sound of 1,000 screaming voices erupted from the glass. Shards flew across the room like shrapnel. Then, as suddenly as it began, there was silence. The cold was gone. The oppressive presence had vanished. The room was just a room, our room, littered with the glittering remains of a haunted past. The next day, I found an old article in a digitized newspaper archive. "Tragedy at Vancroft Estate." The headline from 1958 read, "Arthur Vance, a prominent businessman, had murdered his wife, Eleanor, before taking his own life." The article mentioned his prized possession, an antique silver mirror, a family heirloom. It had been sold at the estate sale. We had been witnesses. The mirror hadn't just recorded the event, it had been replaying it, searching for someone to see, to finally acknowledge the crime trapped within its silver frame. We had set the story straight, and in doing so, we had shattered the echo. Thank you for listening. Be sure to join us next time on Daily Story, where a little boy's imaginary friend who lives in the garden isn't just a fantasy, especially when the garden begins to demand offerings. In Charlie's Garden. That was The Reflected Hume. We hope it sent a chill down your spine. This has been a production of Daily Story on the MagicSurprise F channel. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more audiobook adventures every week. Until next time, listen closely to the silence.